Hi, this is Mike Torkos working on assignment number 4 for Dr. Brown's EDUC6031 class. I'm interviewing a friend of mine who's actually a teacher. Charlie?
Hi, my name is Charlie Alessi. I have undergraduate degrees in history and political thought and graduate degrees in economic history. I've taught students at all levels a multitude of different subjects, everything from college level history to how to make pottery. I also teach in public schools, primary and secondary, with a non-governmental organization who makes ceramic water filters, educating children on the global water crisis.
In my class, we've been talking about instructional events, which are external events that activate and support internal learning. How do you define instruction?
Well, I mean, instruction is not necessarily a verb directly. It's more the product of an environment that the teacher certainly facilitates, but is ultimately dependent on student participation and a feedback loop between teacher and student.
We've got about 9 instructional events in the book. Which 2 or 3 are most interesting or key to you?
Well, I mean, I think it's important if you're going to have that discussion between teacher and student that you very clearly inform your students of what is expected and what they will have learned by the end of the term or course. And in order to do that properly, there has to be a feedback structure set up. Whether this is electronic or direct interaction with the student, some way of letting them know how their work is fitting into the overall course. Doing so, having these discussions, I think actually increases the retention and transfer of knowledge.
There are several things that a teacher does to activate internal processing of learning. Um, what do you like to do?
I think students, especially in today's world, respond very well to narrative as a means to understand and construct arguments, especially in my context as a history teacher. I'm very interested in critical thinking and how students are able to put together seemingly singular events to create that broader narrative. And when you couch these arguments in narrative forms as a story, that really helps a lot of students kind of follow what's happening.
The American Disability Act produced something called Section 508, which ensures that students with disabilities and difficulties get help in the classroom. Have you ever had to do anything special to help a student with disabilities? Any
Um,
challenges?
Myself personally, very little, just beyond sort of space accommodations. But again, teaching in a university, there's a massive infrastructure to provide assistance to students of any needs. The thing that's interesting about the American with Disabilities Act is the extent to which technology has kind of caught up and begun to play a huge role. In 1993, when the act was first passed, you have a lot of research into translating computer images into Braille, for instance. Well, now with voice over IP and text to voice translation software, it's kind of obviated those technologies while increasing student access to course materials, especially online.
Okay, I remember seeing something called JAWS, a reader program that's still around. I saw that back in the
Mm-hmm.
early 90s.
Yep.
All right. Do you have any experience doing an individualized instruction? Any kind of situation where you had to consider the needs of a particular individual and fit your instruction to their needs?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the courses that I taught, writing was always emphasized. So students were producing a lot of writing, and they were being asked pretty consistently to come up with creative arguments based on course material. For a lot of younger students, even at the college level, this can be incredibly difficult. The training just largely isn't there. So there's a lot of individualized instruction with these students, talking about their work, like, okay, here's and helping them with different ways to fit the work that they're already doing into the broader objectives of the course.
So, just off to the side, do you think students are not prepared for college level writing?
Generally, I think it depends. I think you get a range of students, especially at the larger state universities and land grant universities. There's an incredible range of talent.
Okay.
And I've seen this also in my work in primary and secondary schools as well. And I think it's it's the job of the teacher to create course objectives that are broad enough that you capture those students who, might be mathematicians and not historians,
Right.
and allow them to succeed while creating a challenging enough question that your higher level students are able to tackle.
When you write a college syllabus, what is your hierarchy? How do you adapt? How do you structure your events? What are your hopes? How do you organize a syllabus?
Well, so I organize them really around it's sort of a basic structure of events. So main topics for each week, assignments and readings for each week. But beyond that, I like to leave a lot of room to have that adaptive classroom, to be able to tailor individual instruction, and sometimes even between sections.
All right.
If I notice that one section is very strong in a certain area, that there's a good dynamic in that discussion, I might continue it a little more with that section.
Class discussions are a big thing to you. What was that pitch you used for your students?
Oh, wow. The one about
the minutes and the people? That 25 people?
I have 25 people in 50 minutes. You should come to class with one smart thing to say, if nothing else. And there are ways to tackle, especially dense academic reading. These things aren't mystery novels. There's ways to dissect them and use the index, the table of contents, the introduction, which lays out the argument, and kind of play around in the middle of the book. And in 3 or 4 hours, you'll have a much better grasp of what's inside that book than had you spent 14 hours going from page to page.
So you use class discussion to kind of see where coachable, teachable moments are where you need to adapt.
Precisely.
So adaptive is your trick.
Yes, and in a class that's 50 minutes of pure discussion, I'll come into that class with maybe 2 or 3 key points that I'll want to talk about at a certain point. But then I'll largely allow that to be student-driven.
What is the most important prerequisite for learning in your class? Especially auditory information.
I think the core of all learning is being able to write cogently.
Okay.
And writing is very purely the act of synthesizing either what you've heard verbally or what you've researched or what you've read, and to translate that into your own ideas and to fit them into the context of your world.
Okay.
So I think writing is absolutely crucial in the learning process, regardless of the subject matter.
All right.
I think writing is a key skill.
So the ability to take auditory, visual information, run it through your brain, and reproduce it on a piece of paper, either for your own or as an assignment.
Precisely. Precisely.
Right. That's about it. I think we've covered all our questions. My name is Mike.
I'm Charlie Alessi again.
And I appreciate your time, Charlie. Thank you, sir.
All right. No problem. Thank you.
Now,